This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning and welcome to Monkhouse on Mondays. Today I am with somebody I have had the pleasure of working with for a very long time in this sector, Jenny Patrickson from ActiveIQ. Jenny, how are you feeling today?
I'm good, thank you, David. Good to see you. I'm happier now the sun's out. I'm glad the sun's coming back. It's been a bit less enjoyable working from home with the rain coming down and the clouds outside, so this is better.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it the other way around, actually. I really struggle when it's lovely outside and I've got to be inside working. So I think we all have different challenges around that. And Jenny, I know you've got a strong background in sport and physical activity, but what have you been up to during lockdown to stay physically active?
Fortunately, I was a runner, not a good runner, but I was a runner anyway. So I wasn't always reliant on going to the gym. I'd go to the gym, I'd go to classes, but I spent quite a bit of time running. I've got some beautiful woods near me. I'm so lucky that I have that throughout lockdown. So I've been running. That hasn't necessarily been fantastic for my hips.
Right.
I've enjoyed it, but I need to not do it all the time. The day after lockdown, I went to my local bike shop, bought a bike. I'm not a cyclist, so that's been interesting. I've been learning how to cycle again, so I've done some cycling. And all of those lovely Les Mills body balance classes I used to go to for my flexibility from the running. Even it out, I've managed to do Les Mills on demand as well. So usually body balance, sometimes body combat, and sometimes body pump. So it's quite good. I've done more variety of things than I was doing, to be honest. Actually, before
and scored lots of MEPs as well. You're a MyZone addict like me, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I don't think I'm getting as many MEPs as you. Sometimes when I put the belt on for body balance, just to prove I've done something, the number is so low it's actually almost embarrassing. But it's something, isn't it? Something's better than nothing.
Yeah, I keep moaning about my maximum heart rates because I can't get into red anymore no matter what I do.
No, I can't. I can't at all. I think I am. Even when I did doing an indoor cycling class, when I was thinking I have to be, it still doesn't happen. So
absolutely, I know the feeling. Yeah. Anyway, that's our exercise out of the way, and we've done what we've been doing during lockdown. But what's the team at ActiveIQ been doing? Just give us a quick background on ActiveIQ first, who you are, and then let us know what you've been up to.
So ActiveIQ is an awarding organisation, so we develop and award qualifications. We've got about 100 qualifications, different levels through to level 5. Obviously the core qualifications for the sector, such as gym and PT, but a wide range of CPD-based qualifications as well. We approve organisations to deliver them. So our range of customers mixes from schools, universities, colleges, prisons, young offenders institutes, private training providers, apprenticeship providers. So we approve our centres to deliver our qualifications on our behalf, and we supply all the supporting resources to help that delivery, to support that delivery and assessment. And we're also an endpoint assessment organisation for apprenticeship as well. So we work with employers and providers on the apprenticeship side. So yes, that's our core business. We have a CPD platform as well called the Skills Hub, which has come into its own more latterly during lockdown. But that's what we do in a nutshell. And the week before lockdown, we took the team out of the office and started working from home at that point. So yeah, we've all been working from home since then. It was a great test of our business continuity plan. Like everybody, can it be done? Can we carry out every single function as an awarding organisation that we need to? And it worked beautifully from that perspective. We all have the odd tech issues occasionally, but we've been able to do everything that we have done from an office-based scenario in our home. We have, rather than printing hard copy certificates, we issue e-certificates. We have a backlog of hard copies to release when we get back into the office through our phased return. But everything else digitally, we're online and we've been able to do and work with our customers. So that's positive.
And has it been busy for your training organisations, those people that you approve? Have they had demand during lockdown for new learners and things like that?
It's been massively mixed. It really depends on the type of providers. Obviously, from the schools and colleges perspective, it was worst case scenario, everything shut down. And our qualifications that we offer in colleges, much like GCSEs and A-levels, our tech level qualifications, are going through at the moment that process of calculated results. So all those learners from colleges who weren't able to finish their courses and their assessments, our team has been massively busy this particular month and also last month working on calculated results for all the college learners. So for colleges, they weren't busy from the perspective of having students on site, but they had loads of results to tie up and finalise. And it is not an exact science. There's been multiple, as you can imagine, meetings with regulators, Ofqual, Qualifications Wales, CCEA, Northern Ireland, and just to work out that process that Ofqual had devised with awarding organisations for how that calculated results process would work. So that's colleges. Our providers, really mixed. We've got providers who were using a more digital method of delivery, who have obviously thrived because they were really well established and had a good digital provision of education and assessment. We had some that offered a blended approach and have been able to transition to a digital means of delivery. And then those that were much more face-to-face have obviously had more challenges. So from our perspective, our business development team have worked really hard to help those providers with the switch that is appropriate for them. It may not always be appropriate for each organisation, but if it is, they've worked with them to try and help them switch to different method of delivery.
Right. So what does that mean for employers who are going to be taking on new team members? Because we know we're going to open on the 25th of July. There'll be some recruitment happening. And if somebody has a calculated certificate or a different type of assessment, what does it mean for employers?
It's a really interesting one because we've spent so many meetings, forums discussing this with SIMSPA as well and with all the regulators, including the Institute for Apprenticeships, to make sure that whatever we put in place, whatever any awarding organisation puts in place, is still valid and appropriate and of good quality and is not seen as a poor relative of a normal certificate. And my son is in the A-level group this year whose own results are being calculated, and the thought that his A-level result that he'll get in August would be lesser than anyone else's is appalling. It shouldn't be the case. So there's been a lot of work done to look at where there are assessment adaptations made, that they are appropriate and they're consistent across the sector, and that the discussion with employers through representatives like UK Active or SIMSPA have to make sure they understand how we're going about this, what the safeguards are, what still needs to be done, and to make sure it's an appropriate qualification. Not been easy for anyone, but we've worked together and we've come to solutions and in many cases numerous solutions, because one size doesn't fit all. And all these learners who started, let's say, their courses and qualifications in lockdown, the key thing that the government were very adamant about with qualifications was that these learners aren't jeopardised and left in limbo and disadvantaged, and that they were enabled by all awarding organisations to complete their qualifications.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? From an employer point of view, from a team member point of view, from somebody who's trying to get into our sector, it's really important that playing field is level. Yes, and that they're just not seen as anything lesser than anyone who's gone through the qualification at any other time. But what of course it's done is it's, I think, opened eyes in terms of how more diverse education can and should be, and that there isn't one way of delivering a qualification or a course. And I think the creativity that we've seen just coming forward from different providers as how they've actually continued to engage with their learners has really proved a point that whilst we know face-to-face learning is desirable, it isn't the only way of doing things. And it's also proved that doing something digitally, don't send someone away and just say, work through this and you're done. It is still about engagement, and it's still about communication and following up with those learners and making sure that they are able to do what they are doing at home. Absolutely. And of course, recently we've just had the Chancellor's mini budget, and in the mini budget talking about apprenticeships and bonus effectively for taking on apprenticeships. How can the sector really address the opportunities that apprenticeship gives us? Because I still think we're not quite there in the sector. We've not really embraced it. What sort of things are out there to help us make the most of this opportunity?
It's interesting because obviously apprenticeships were a challenged area anyway, I think, because it's not that long ago that the levy was introduced, the switch from apprenticeship frameworks to standards. That was all bedding in and had its own challenges anyway, along with funding for apprenticeship providers. During lockdown, one of the big pieces of work we've had as an endpoint assessment organisation has been working with the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education and Ofqual to enable adaptations to take place for assessment for apprenticeships so that apprentices can be assessed and can keep going and not disadvantaged. The problem is, depending on the nature of the standard, the apprenticeship, in some cases it's appropriate to adapt and in some cases it's not. And in some cases it's safe to continue the apprenticeship, in some cases it isn't with the assessment. So it's got its challenges. There's, with the mini budget, there's 1.6 billion now put forward for boosting apprenticeships in light of the current situation, which means £2,000 per apprentice under the age of 25 that would be given to employers to support the uptake of apprenticeships, and 1,500 for apprenticeships that's 16 to 18-year-olds.
Right.
They're also, the government is putting a huge amount of additional funding into traineeships, so that lead into apprenticeships, where you may have trainees that need work experience with an employer. So there's funding given to the employer to allow that work experience to happen. I think all of that's fantastic and positive. The challenges will, of course, come with what's happening to our employers in our sector. Are they going to come through this period of time intact? And do they have those opportunities still for apprentices within the workplace? And for traineeships, do they have the opportunities to give work experience to trainees? You know, it's a nice, on paper, it looks great, but the proof will be, can it actually be implemented? Is there the capacity with employers to implement it? We found with our apprenticeship provision, we've had more success out of sector with customer service and team leader, supervisor, things like that, business administration, facilities management, more challenges around the physical activity sector, keeping that side of the business going.
Yeah, one of my greatest pleasure is the fact that 3 kids that came out of school and did work placement in my first leisure centre that I managed are actually still employed in the sector, and we're still connected. And I get back from them around the basis that we gave them, because we I think found a way of exciting the kids, of generating interest, of working with them, not just giving them the photocopying or the brush to use. So I think you're right, that whole work placement thing, it has to be thought through, but it's incredibly valuable for the future workforce of the sector. So Jenny, this always happens when you and I talk. You've got a minute left, right? That's all you've got. So that minute, what's the greatest opportunity that post-COVID is going to present us?
Right, let's pick something good here. I think, you know, we've had our core qualifications for some time now, haven't we? Which is that route, gym, personal training, everything that fits around that. You know, we've thought for some time, as I know have many others in the sector, that, you know, that's a very narrow view of our physical activity sector. There's so much more to it. And whilst we've developed qualifications with breadth that address health and all the wraparound side of fitness, not just fitness, but health-related activity and health promotion, you know, there's not always been a huge uptake on those qualifications. Because people do what they've always known. And I think this has proved a point. You know, if we face lockdown again, and you know, God forbid that gyms did face problems in the future, people don't have to be in that facility to work with others, do they, and to support others with physical activity regimes. And we've seen it, obviously, and I don't need to go into that. We've all seen that happen online throughout lockdown. So the people that we can bring into the sector or see through different paths within the sector, much more breadth around how they engage with individuals, not just in a gym environment, outside the gym environment, different environment, training sessions, support, all of that we're looking at now for future proofing for where we go with our qualifications in the future, and obviously working with people to see what do you need for that.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that's something that reinforces a lot of things that people have been saying around maximising this new opportunity that people have found from being outside, from walking, from running, from riding their bikes, just as you said right at the beginning of this conversation. Jenny, it's really lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to our first actual catch up and a cup of coffee. So
yes.
you take care, and I will see you soon. Thank you, Jenny. Take care.
See you. Bye.